Welcome in to another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla. I came out of my cave and I am occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This man next to me, of course, is your thunderstick and my vice mayor, the one and only Jesse Friedman. Jesse, it's that time of the year. It's that season. It's trade deadline season. And we know that the Diamondbacks, of course, have been getting, connected to a few players, not that many. But we also know that the general consensus seems to be that this team will be adding relief pitching, or at least that seems to be what most experts feel like this team is in need of. That seems to be the one thing that they are the only thing that they're really in need of.
Yeah, it's a very different situation than the Diamondbacks were in last year, where the starting rotation did not have much stability. Brandon Pfaadt had not really emerged as Brandon Pfaadt at this point last season. They needed a lot more than they do this year, and obviously they went out. They got Paul Sewald. They went out and got Tommy Pham. Mike Hazen certainly had regrets over not getting a starting pitcher, and that did proved to be a bit of an issue for them in the playoffs, but still Mike certainly added enough to get them all the way to the World Series, which is a pretty remarkable accomplishment in its own right. But yeah, this is a different situation where this Diamondbacks roster is in a different place. A lot of this is more about just getting healthy. And if you imagine this team with Eduardo Rodriguez back and Merrill Kelly back, it starts to feel a whole lot different than it is right now.
Right.
But we're still going to keep just going through different different players that the Diamondbacks might trade for. Well, so it could be should be a good time.
And I mean, obviously, there is the idea here that they could be looking to impact this team beyond this season, right? So there are some areas to upgrade besides just a left-handed pitching in the bullpen. You have potentially a right-handed outfielder, DH kind of player, maybe a backup catcher, maybe a utility infielder. And then if you're talking about beyond the season, I know it's early to be doing that. I know it's early to be even talking about this, and I don't want to, but in at least Paul Sewald's case, I'm sure some fans would be okay with talking about them potentially looking at his replacement beyond this season. There's also the idea here that maybe you start looking at a first baseman of the future as well if Christian Walker doesn't end up re-signing with this team as a free agent after the year. But we don't want to really talk about that. What we do want to talk about is disqualifying at least one guy from potentially being a trade deadline candidate. I mean, who knows how the organization feels about his comments, but it would seem that Garrett Crochet kind of made his position known in regards to if a team trades for him at the deadline, what he expects.
Yeah, we have a tweet from John Heyman, which came out earlier today. John tweeted out, Garrett Crochet plan with White Sox is to pitch normal workload as starter until the end of the regular season. If traded, would need an extension to pitch in October. He won't move to the bullpen and will not take any break. He views the starter routine as best for his health. So for those of you who might not have seen our show last night, we talked about Garrett Crochet as an option for the Diamondbacks, potentially a far-fetched option, granted, not someone we expect the team to trade for. But after seeing that, I wonder if any team is going to be able to trade for Garrett Crochet. I mean, it seems like based on what John said there, that he wants to stay in the rotation. He's already well past the number of innings that he's thrown in any season in the past after moving over from the bullpen into the rotation. But yeah, if you're a team and you're trying to figure out if you want to trade for Garrett Crochet and he wants an extension before he would be willing to pitch in October, that's a pretty big caveat, especially for a guy who, he can say all he wants about how he wants to stay in the rotation. Teams are still going to have questions about his ability to do that, just given how many innings he's already thrown this year. So we were pretty skeptical of the D-backs being able to pull that off yesterday, and I am probably more skeptical of that now.
First, I want to give a shout out to all of you guys here in the chat, but especially Jagurtha We love whenever Jagurtha shows up. Thank you for being here. Jagurtha asks, when will Kelly come back? We will know a little bit more about when Merrill Kelly. I mean, as of this point, it still seems like he is on track to be back here by the end of, or not the end of, but by midpoint, maybe in August, maybe the end of August. We don't really know, but we should see Merrill Kelly and Erod in the month of August, at least. That if all things go as planned, it would seem like that would be a good time when they would return. But in regards to right now with Garrett Crochet, I don't know if this is a character issue or not. It might be seen as that. His comments might get blown out of proportion a little bit, considering that he seems to be kind of leaning more on the idea here that it's his health and his routine right now as a starter, that he really doesn't want to end up as basically just a bullpen arm for some team come the playoffs this year. But at the same time too, I mean, that should change how a lot of teams look at potentially acquiring him. There are some teams that might want him as a left-handed arm in their starting rotation in the future, and that might still be appealing to them. This might still be a time. The White Sox are just this constant, like, quadruple A team. You know what I mean? Like, they're this team that's really bad at baseball, and they seem to produce really good players, and the rest of the league just kind of picks those players away from them, right? You know, but
it is wild that the White Sox they're what, 27 and 77 or something like that right now, and they have multiple players that teams are interested in trading for at the deadline.
And they seem to be, over the last 2 seasons, that's been the case, right? They've always had this. They've had this. It's like they've been mismanaged, but the talent is there, and teams feel like if they could acquire Luis Robert, or they could get one guy, Garrett Crochet, or the other, like, these guys are going to be stars. And I mean, are we wrong? Dylan Cease just threw a no-hitter today for the San Diego Padres.
He did.
Former White Sox pitcher. I think you can get that shirt on clearance on the CHGO locker website. Cease still is a White Sox. But anyway, this is just one of those situations where we didn't really feel like the Diamondbacks were going to be in on him. But as far as those comments go, I guess it's good to make your position known, because, again, you don't want a team using you in a way that you don't want to be used. And as a team, you don't want to acquire a guy that's not going to be willing to work any role that you want to put them in, including potentially putting them in the bullpen.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating situation here with Garrett Crochet. I mean, he certainly is within his right to go out and say something like this, right? It's just a matter of how this will affect the White Sox ability to actually trade him.
Right.
And my suspicion is that it will become almost impossible for the White Sox to trade him if he's demanding an extension before he would pitch in October. So it's we haven't really seen this kind of thing before. Like, I don't.
They
at least
usually
I don't
keep this kind of
remember
private, because it's not a good look, I don't think. And I mean, it felt like he was trying to word it carefully so it wouldn't be taken out of context or make him look like again a character issue for him as a player. You just can't help but think it is, though, reading those comments and seeing what his demands kind of are as still a young player in baseball. But
yeah, and like, what does a Crochet extension cost is my other question.
Good question.
I mean,
very good
he's
question.
already under team control for 2 more seasons. He's one of the best starting pitchers in baseball, at least as of right now. I mean, I don't think you're looking at tacking on 1 season for $15 million and calling it good. Like, you might be buying out Crochet's free agent years, well into his 30s or something. And so it seems just like an impossible scenario that a team would trade for him and also grant him an extension in order to get him to pitch in October. And pitching in October, I mean, that's the reason that you're trading for Crochet, right?
Correct.
It's not just about
at this
the
point
next
of the
2 months.
Season, yes,
It's the team that would acquire him would be a team that is looking to play in the playoffs, and they want him to be a big part of their postseason rotation, presumably. So yeah, I don't know if we're gonna really be talking much more about Garrett Crochet on the trade market.
Well, meanwhile, we have plenty of guys that could be potential trade targets for the Arizona Diamondbacks to discuss, including five today that we're going to go over, because there's not enough time. The trade deadline is coming up right around the corner. I think we literally have 3 more shows before the trade deadline, and then we will be bringing you next Tuesday a trade deadline wrap-up show right at the trade deadline, as well as a post-game show on Tuesday. We love you guys. We're bringing you as much as we possibly can there on Tuesday. But in the meantime, we do have a lot of players to discuss in regards to Diamondbacks possibly being interested in some of these potential free agent candidates. Some of them are guys that have been linked to the Diamondbacks, and some of them are guys that we just kind of think are might be better fits, because some of the players that have been linked to the Diamondbacks, like we said yesterday with the athletics list, don't really make a whole lot of sense, right? Things have changed though, right? So of course, the first guy that we want to talk about is somebody that a lot of you in the chat have brought up, a lot of people are interested in, and that's infielder Luis Rengifo from the Los Angeles Angels. Rengifo slashed this year 309, 351, 432, 6 home runs, 27 RBI. He has a 1.8 B-WAR. He has how many, like, you surprised me with that. How many stolen bases does he have?
He has 22 stolen bases this year. He has not had more than 6 in any season before this.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So he's really having one of the best seasons of his career, and he's a third baseman. So with the way that Gino has struggled, Rengifo's name came up, and we mispronounced it as Rengifo quite a bit, but Rengifo's name came up for a lot of Diamondbacks fans because we were looking for that option at third base, and he kind of was a good fit, especially on a bad Angels team that most likely was going to be a seller when the trade deadline came around. I just don't know if now, with the way that Gino has been playing as of late, you brought up his numbers on last night's show, if he's as much of a priority. He's still a very good player, though. I mean, he's been hitting very interesting splits as a switch hitter.
Yeah. Rengifo is a switch hitter. This season, he's absolutely destroyed lefties. He's hitting 380, 415, 540, and 53 plate appearances against lefties this year. Against righties, still pretty good. 292, 336, 407. That's in 224 plate appearances. I'm hesitant on Rengifo with the D-backs for a few different reasons. Number one, as I just mentioned, he's been better against lefties than righties. And I think, if anything, the D-backs would rather it be the reverse.
Correct.
So that part of it doesn't really make sense to me. You're talking about Gino Suarez at third base, right? Theoretically, Rengifo would probably take some of those at bats, and he's a right-handed hitter. He's better against lefties. So if you're gonna, have someone to kind of platoon with him at third base, you want it to be someone who is better against righties, and that is not Rengifo is not that. The other thing is that if you look at his expected stats this year, Rengifo has far and away outperformed those numbers. His expected batting average is 268 compared to his actual of 309. His expected slug is 366 compared to his actual of 432. And if you look at xWOBA, which is just kind of the all-encompassing stat that reads like an on-base percentage, he is at 299. And Gino Suarez, Derek, is currently at 304. So Gino Suarez, from an expected stat standpoint, has actually been better this year than Luis Rengifo. And then there's also the defense. That's the other part of the equation for me.
Huge. It's a huge part of the equation.
It's a big part of the equation for sure, especially for the D-backs, who very much emphasize that side of the ball. And he has -7 outs above average this year. He's at -3 at third base. He's also spent significant time at second base, where he's -4. So defensively, you're looking at a downgrade pretty much no matter who he's stepping in for out of the D-backs' current infield. So it doesn't really make sense to me, but I understand why he's an appealing guy in some ways. I mean, maybe he does have some ability to kind of outperform the expected numbers in some way. He's certainly done that by a wide margin this year.
Sure.
But on paper, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me.
And his splits are, he does hit against right-handed pitching more often. He has 53 plate appearances versus 224. 53 for left-handed pitching versus 224 versus right-handed pitching. Obviously, that's because right-handers are more prevalent, but it's also, again, his slash line of 292, 336, 407 isn't bad at all. I mean, and it is an upgrade from like Kevin Newman, who's slashing 273, 305, 355 against right-handed pitchers. But do we need to make any, like, it's negotiable? Like, it's very close. Kevin Newman's a better defender. He kind of fills that role right now of being that backup.
Yeah.
We know we don't want to see Kevin Newman at third base very often based on what we've seen. But at the same time, when you look at Rengifo's defensive numbers, I don't know if we want to see him there very much. The minute he goes out there and clanks a play, people are going to immediately be calling for, Gino to be back in the lineup. And that's something that I said even when Gino was struggling. Like, he makes playing third base look fairly effortless. He doesn't make every play, but he makes a lot of great plays. And he's kind of like Christian Walker, where he's so good at it that you don't realize how good he is until he's not playing that position. I think that right now I understand people's frustration, but you have to look at a season month by month versus looking at the entire body of work. Gino has been incredible in the month of July, and I really feel like, he has given the Diamondbacks a reason to not have to go after, this type of player, which they might have been looking at someone like Rengifo prior to the way that, Gino came on in June and July, but things are a little different now. And I mean, this is the guy that they traded for. This is the guy that they wanted him to be. So I don't know if that's a need anymore. We also have a hard time finding collectively very many position players that the Diamondbacks would make a lot of sense for the Diamondbacks. Their guys are playing well now, and they have options, in the outfield. They have plenty of options. It feels like, yes, you would want to add some of these other players, but do you really need to sacrifice something big at the trade deadline in order to get a backup catcher or, somebody like this? I don't know if it's as important as adding to the bullpen, which is the bigger need right now for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And that's why the rest of our list is pretty much relief pitchers. And some of them make sense. Some of them, maybe not so much, but I know Michael Kopech, his name from the Chicago White Sox, again, another Chicago White Sox pitcher, he has been connected to the Diamondbacks in a few reports. So let's take a look at his numbers this year. 42 2/3 innings pitched, a 4.85 ERA, a 1.34 whip, 12 strikeouts per 9, which is impressive, 4.9 walks per 9, 4.87 FIP. Right-handed pitcher, again, not a lefty like the Diamondbacks are looking for, but another guy that you can almost feel based on his past seasons has been, he's been better. He had a sub-4 ERA in 2021 and 2022. He was converted back to a reliever this year after mostly starting last year and exclusively starting in 2022. So he's kind of been around, but it feels like he is just, the Diamondbacks are familiar with guys like this, guys that can start for you, but probably make a better option out of the bullpen. And, again, he has some time under team control, which that's something that, again, we know Mike Hazen is looking for.
Yeah, he is under team control through next season. So he's making $3 million this year. It'd be about $1 million for the rest of the season. And then he's arbitration eligible again for 2025. This one doesn't make a ton of sense for me either. He has a 4.85 ERA, right? Like, I almost feel like the conversation stops right there. The Diamondbacks are looking for someone. What Mike Hazen told me is they're looking for someone who can pitch in the 7th inning or later.
Yeah,
and he throws 99. I mean, there's some things about Michael Kopech that very much do look like a back end level reliever, and he has occupied a role like that in the past and been pretty successful at it. But this season, the walks are just a little bit too high. He's been pretty home run prone this year as well. I think that's a big reason why his ERA is as high as it is, despite all the strikeouts. He does have a 3.89 expected ERA. So maybe from like a batted ball standpoint, he's gotten a little bit unlucky. Sure. But yeah, I mean, the cost is maybe relatively low compared to some other guys that we'll talk about. But, I mean, do you feel like Michael Kopech really moves the needle for the D-backs in the bullpen? I'm not sure that he really does, if I'm being totally honest.
Nicholas in the chat says too close to a Bryce Jarvis. That's a very good point. Chris up there said, how big of a free agent bust was Anthony Rendon? The biggest, quite possibly.
Yeah,
the biggest.
That was pretty.
But that's a whole other thing. I mean, you want to talk about Angels. You guys want to talk about other people, maybe people that are more relevant, I guess, to what the Diamondbacks are looking for, an actual upgrade. And Bowser Jr., that's what I'm calling you in the chat. It's just JR, but I'm saying Bowser Jr. Says someone like Estévez could be good. Not sure if he's been mentioned. I've just tuned in. Well, you tuned in at the perfect time because we're going to talk about right-handed pitcher Carlos Estévez from the Los Angeles Angels. 34 innings pitched this year for Estévez, 2.38 ERA, 0.74 whip, 8.5 strikeouts per 9, a 1.3 walk to 9 ratio. That's fantastic. A 2.85 FIP. Man's been incredible for the Los Angeles Angels. They do not deserve him. He's 31 years old. He makes $6.75 million salary this year, and then he's a free agent at the end of the year. So there's, I guess, a negative there for you is that he would be a rental, but he'd be a damn good rental. And even though he's not a lefty, he's just that high leverage guy, and like you said, Jesse, there in the 7th and later that Mike Hazen is looking for.
Yeah, I think with a reliever, a rental is probably okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I'm sure Mike Hazen would love to have someone who has multiple years of control, as you normally expect. But yeah, Rengifo is also, I don't think we mentioned about him. He also is under control through next season. So him and Kopech are the same in that sense. But yeah, Carlos Estévez has been really good this season. I mean, he has closing experience, so he's kind of in that, Kyle Finnegan, Tanner Scott mold where if Paul Sewald is down for a day, or, dare I say, if Sewald has some struggles here in the next month and the Diamondbacks decide they want to go in a different direction in the closing role, which I don't really anticipate, but if it happened, Estévez is someone who has a lot of experience in that role and is 20 for 23 in save opportunities this year. And yeah, all of the numbers really check out here. He has a 2.67 expected ERA, a 2.85 FIP, as you mentioned. His fly ball rate is extremely high this year. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but he's managed to be very successful. Nonetheless, hasn't given up, an inordinate number of home runs or anything. So Estévez makes a lot of sense. I think it's sort of a given that the Angels are going to trade him. It would make no sense for them to hold on. So Estévez, the D-backs, is something that, unlike the other two guys we just talked about, this one I'm on board with, Derek. This one actually makes a lot of sense for them.
However, the cost could be very high, and the Angels are going to have a lot of suitors for an arm like Estévez there, even as a rental.
Yeah.
So many teams are going to be in it. He can really solidify a lot of bullpens. I know the Minnesota Twins are very bullish on bringing him in, and I know that a couple of other teams are interested in him as well. So hopefully the Diamondbacks, I guess it's a matter of like how much do they want to give up? And I mean, we haven't been talking about that portion of it because it's difficult. It's difficult to
what the
figure
Angels
out.
would want. It's very, very hard to figure something like that out. But with the Angels, it doesn't, they're not necessarily asking for guys who are on your major league roster. At least
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily think that's the case with a team like them.
I'll tell you this much. I know we brought him up yesterday, but with everything that's happened with Davison De Los Santos, trading him could be enormous because his value, I imagine, is very, very high right now. And in a way, the Diamondbacks are playing with house money when it comes to De Los Santos because he was already gone, right? He was already a member of the Guardians.
That's true.
I know it took the Guardians, obviously, not keeping him on the major league roster in order for him to come back through the Rule 5 draft. But still, it very much feels like he is one of the best minor leaguers that the Diamondbacks have that the organization could see as expendable, considering they already lost him, right? So
yeah, I think that, anyone who is having like a really good season in the minors, naturally, those are the guys that teams are maybe going to want, right? We saw Ryan Bliss be a part of that trade for Paul Sewald with the Mariners last year when he was having a really, really good season in the minors as well. So yeah, Davison De Los Santos, Adrian Del Castillo also comes to mind.
No, you don't get him. I don't want this to be a Toronto situation with our guy, Gabby Moreno, because, of course, he makes it easy to say, yes, we want to move on. But, Adrian Del Castillo and Gabby Moreno as your two catchers, that's...
I'm just saying that in terms of what other teams are going to want,
correct.
The value on... frankly, if you look at the D-backs, top prospect list, whichever one you want to look at, not many of them have really been all that great this year, right? Drew Jones has been a little bit hit or miss. He has like an 800 OPS in A-ball. Tommy Troy's been hurt a lot. Came back recently. He's been looking better, but his numbers for the season still aren't all that impressive. Gino Groover's been hurt almost the entire year. He just came back from injury. So I don't think teams are going to be asking about those guys as much, at least the D-backs wouldn't.
It's fair.
Probably wouldn't want to trade them anyway because you're not really trading them at a time where their value is maximized. So, it's gonna hurt, right? If you actually do land a Carlos Estévez, if you do land, one of these relievers that a lot of teams are going to be chasing after, it's going to cost you something. And we certainly saw that last year with the Paul Sewald trade.
Trade a left-handed outfielder. You know what I mean? There, we got plenty of those. We got surplus.
You want to trade Jake McCarthy?
No, that's probably wrong. That's probably not the thing to do. But we do have a couple of Toronto Blue Jays to take a look at, by the way, speaking of which, before we wrap up here with our 5 potential trade deadline targets. The first one is right-handed pitcher Yimi Garcia from the Toronto Blue Jays. He's had himself a good year, and it feels like the Blue Jays inevitably, with the way this season is going for them, are going to look to shed some of their guys before the end of the year. Garcia in 30 innings pitched this year has a 2.70 ERA, a 0.80 WHIP, 12.6 strikeout per 9 ratio, a 2.4 walk to 9 ratio, and a 2.64 FIP. Very, very good numbers for Garcia.
Yeah, Yimi Garcia might be maybe my favorite out of all of the guys who are pretty clearly in position to be moved at the deadline. I mean, of course, everyone wants Mason Miller, or I guess they did want Mason Miller. Now he has a broken left hand, so I guess maybe no one wants Mason Miller now. But
well, and that does technically make it that much more difficult here at the trade deadline, because with some of the bigger names like Mason Miller and Garrett Crochet kind of like taking themselves a little bit out of the running for some teams, it's going to be even more of a crowded market for guys like Garcia.
That is a good point. But yeah, Yimi Garcia, just a ton of strikeouts, as you mentioned, 12.6 Ks per nine. That's a 36.5% strikeout rate, which is really, really off the charts insane. That would lead the Diamondbacks by a pretty wide margin. They don't have anyone in their bullpen striking out that many guys. Not even Justin Martinez.
Yeah.
Walk rate is certainly under control as well. 2.4 walks per nine, as you said. He's making $6 million this year, so he'd cost about $2 million the rest of the way if the D-backs were to acquire him. And he's a free agent at the end of the year. So for the Toronto Blue Jays, this is a guy that they're probably looking to trade. And he throws a bazillion pitches, Derek. That's the other thing that I love about Yimi Garcia. He has a four-seamer, a curveball, a sinker, a sweeper, a changeup, and a slider.
That's hot.
And he's throwing like 14 pitches per outing.
I have a bone to pick with the MLB.
I was going to say, it sounds like one of your pitchers on your team.
A sweeper is just a slider.
Oh God.
Do we really have to have this conversation
now? We don't. We have too many trade deadline candidates.
A sweeper is just a pitch that the broadcaster doesn't know what it is. Oh, it was a sweeper.
All pitches are just pitches with movement, if you want to throw it that way, right? I mean, they just go in different directions, but it's a matter of knowing where they're going to go and getting them where they need to go in order to be a good pitcher.
Back me up. Sweepers are stupid. All right,
I will say real quick on that point that Wrigley Field is the first ballpark that I have been to, at least that I'm aware of, that did not call them sweepers. Wrigley Field said slider for Paul Sewald, when every other ballpark that I've been to, at least,
they haven't programmed that into their
they were
system
correct.
yet.
They were correct. Sweepers just appeared out of nowhere. They did, like 3 years ago. Oh, he's throwing a sweeper.
Yeah, this is what happens when you get older. All of a sudden, terms appear, and you're like, "What does this mean?"
It was just about trying to have more specific language, because sliders are like kind of the catch-all breaking ball pitch, right?
Sure.
So sometimes you want to be a little more specific about the movement profile of the pitch, and sweepers have a pretty different movement profile from what we now call sliders.
In 10 years, we'll have 17 different pitches.
Yeah. There's going to be 24 different types of sliders.
A sweeper is just a nickname for a janitor.
Ghost fork.
Not a pitch.
All right. Well, we have one more player to talk about, another Blue Jay, and this time it's a left-handed pitcher. A guy I like very much, and this is Yusei Kikuchi. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Kikuchi.
Yeah. Kikuchi.
111
Mariner
innings
great,
pitched.
by the way.
He has put in a lot of work this season. He has a 4.54 ERA, 1.31 WHIP, 10.1 Ks per nine, 2.3 walks per nine, and a 3.58 FIP. Not the best numbers, not as good of numbers as some of these other guys on this list, but there is not a lot of left-handed relievers available on the trade market. And again, the top ones that we've discussed, like Tanner Scott, are going to cost the Diamondbacks probably an outrageous amount in a return in order to get them. Yusei might not cost the Diamondbacks nearly as much, and he might be able to give them that left-handed arm that they truly need, because they only, relying on Joe Mantiply right now, it just doesn't seem to be the answer.
Yeah, so Kikuchi, he's a starter who doesn't throw as many innings as maybe you would like. He's averaging 5 1/3 innings per start this season. He's more of a five and dive kind of a guy. But yeah, do the Diamondbacks actually need a starting pitcher? Probably not, as we've discussed in recent days. The reason that I'm still including Kikuchi is that he's on an expiring contract. He's almost certainly going to be traded. And he could make sense for the Diamondbacks in the dreaded scenario in the next 5 days that they get some bad news about an Erod or a Merrill Kelly, that they have some doubts about one of those guys being able to come back when they hope, and they decide all right, we actually do need a starting pitcher. We don't want to pay an extortionate price. We don't necessarily want a guy who's under control for 2 more years. We just need another arm to get us through the rest of the season. And Kikuchi's perfectly fine in that sense. A 4.54 ERA, as you mentioned, it's not great.
Yep.
But his peripherals are better than that. His expected ERA is 4. His FIP is 3.58. His xFIP is 3.32. So I think there's a decent chance that he's better than that the rest of the way. Strikeout numbers are good. The walk numbers are pretty low. A little home run prone at times, but I think Kikuchi is going to be moved, and he probably won't make sense for the Diamondbacks. You probably hope he doesn't make sense for the Diamondbacks, because that means that something went wrong with one of those injured starters.
Well, and like I said, I mean, obviously I'm talking about him coming out of the bullpen just because where would he play if the Diamondbacks do acquire him outside of that, the 5-man starting rotation, right? But
sure.
Yeah, you're right. Like, there is that possibility. There also could just be the move made for, for the unknown, right? Like, I mean, they really don't know what's going to happen here with Merrill Kelly and Eduardo Rodriguez. And that part sucks, because despite them being on the path to returning here by the end of the month, a setback could happen at any point. Not to mention the fact that we've seen every other pitcher outside of Brandon Pfaadt suffer an injury this season on the starting rotation. So hopefully, like you said, the Diamondbacks don't need him. Hopefully, if they do, they can find a way to utilize them in other ways if they don't need him in the starting rotation. But we do have to do one piece of business that I don't really want to do before we get out of here. And this is not trade deadline related. It's just noteworthy. And that is that I guess we need to do a little spying on our exes. I don't know. Do we have spying? Yeah, they're the spying on our exes. This one's gross.
Nick Ahmed plays for who now, Derek?
Nick Ahmed plays, Jesse, for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Wow.
Do what you will with that information, folks. Nick Ahmed plays for the That's what we have. That's what we got for you. I don't know. I feel like what this is going to result in is Dave Roberts bringing him into his office the first day and closing the door and having him tell him everything about Torey Lovullo.
It's kind of a given that Nick Ahmed will hit. Nick Ahmed will have like an 800 OPS with the Dodgers, right? Like, we're all on the same page that's what's going to happen.
No, that's not absolutely not going on. You sound like Jacob. Jacob said that same thing earlier. No, that's not what's going to happen, because the Giants thought that was what was going to happen, and the Giants did not keep Nick Ahmed.
He did for a little while. He was hidden for a little while, but Nick Ahmed was designated for assignment by the Giants on July 9th. Apparently was just sitting at home when the Dodgers called him up, because Miguel Rojas is now on the injured list. Like everyone else on the Dodgers, it feels like they've been very much decimated recently. Nick Ahmed is going to be pretty much the everyday shortstop for the Dodgers. And it feels to me, Derek, like a lot of the kind of staple Diamondbacks players from the last decade have found their way onto the Dodgers, right? David Peralta was there. AJ Pollock was there.
Daniel Hudson.
Yeah, Daniel Hudson, that'd be a little further back. But yeah, he obviously has played a number of seasons there as well. So it's going to be really weird seeing D-backs, I guess, don't play the Dodgers again this season, but it's going to be really weird.
Elise gets it. Elise said it, and Nick will reveal all the D-back secrets because he left on a bitter note.
That is, yeah.
I found out today he was offered the ring and didn't accept it. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So,
I think he was the only guy.
I don't know. Do what you will with that information, but we thank you guys for being here regardless of how you feel about that. Of course, if you have not subscribed to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel, do so now. We thank you guys again for always being here, always keeping us company. Drop us a like. We always love when you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, sign up for notifications that way you don't miss whenever our shows go live. Of course, if you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you subscribe on your favorite audio podcasting app. Leave us a review. We always appreciate those 5-star reviews. They mean the world to us. Also, check out Bet365. Be one of 90 million users worldwide and get down on Bet365, which offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports, including esports. And right now, you can get down on the Bet365 baseball early payout offer, where you are a winner if your team goes up by 5 runs with an instant payout. Parlay and same game parlay selections will be marked as winners as well. So sign up and use our code of PHNX365. When you do, you can deposit $10 into your account and choose either between a bet and get offer, where you can place a bet for $5 or more and get $150 in bonus bets instantly, or a first net safety bet offer where you can place up to $1,000 bet, and if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Well, it is that time of the year. We are getting to the point, Jesse, where, we're getting back to school. Businesses needing to hire some new people. Sometimes, summer help. I know we can always use some new hosts around here, by the way, because sometimes, you just never.
I just misspoke about the Diamondbacks not having a series with the Dodgers. They do have one more series against the Dodgers. So
that's how quickly,
you've been fired. Now you've been let go.
You might need to replace someone that makes constant
the rest
mistakes.
Of the show is going to be like this.
Just mute his mic. Yeah, we're one shot now. I have to do all of the work, and I don't want to do all the work. So, of course, I would look to Indeed.com, and you should as well, because Indeed.com is driven by the search for better. They match you with candidates, qualified candidates, and they help you find those candidates faster. Of course, if you need to hire, you need Indeed. It is your matching and hiring platform. Ditch the busy work and use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster, and not just faster candidates, but employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent survey. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/allcity. Just go to Indeed.com/allcity right now and support our show by telling them you heard about this offer on the D-Back Show. Indeed.com/allcity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Well, Jesse, it is time, of course. We got to take a look at the standings, because things are, we're in that time of the year, right? I've constantly said there's no reason to sit there and stare at the wild card standings every single day with the way things are changing. You had like 20 teams that were all half a game apart for a while there. It was craziness, but now things are becoming a little bit clearer. I don't even know if clear might be the right word, because the Atlanta Braves have not been very good lately. They're kind of dropping back to the pack. You have the Mets and the Cardinals still playing very good baseball, and they continue to kind of push their way up. And you just have a whole bunch of teams here, as you'll see in the wild card race. Let's take a look at the standings. Of course, you have your division leaders there in the Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Brewers. You got your current wild card teams right now, and the Braves in that first spot, the Mets, which are currently just back from them, and the Cardinals in that final spot. So far, this entire grouping is basically separated by, what is this, 3 games total, Jesse? Is that what the entire grouping here? You got the Padres, the D-Backs, and the Pirates all within 1 game of that final wild card spot. And this is actually a little outdated, because the Padres just won today, improving to 55 and 50. So they make this an even more crowded field.
Yeah, now the Cardinals are technically on the outside looking in. They're half game out. Yeah, a couple of takeaways here for me. Number one, as you mentioned, the Atlanta Braves have very much come back down to earth. They are now just 54 and 46. The Diamondbacks are 2.5 games behind the Atlanta Braves, which is not something I expected to be saying in late July.
Especially missing Merrill Kelly and Eduardo Rodriguez. It's just wild what this team has been able to accomplish, considering their starting pitching issues that they've had.
Both teams have been pretty decimated by injuries, but honestly, the Braves even more so. Losing Acuna for the season. Ozzy Albies is now going to miss pretty significant time. The offense is just not nearly as potent as it was last year, especially with Matt Olson and Austin Riley not quite having the same level of season as they had a year ago. I'm sure the Braves will improve here in the next few days. They're a team that seems likely to add. But yeah, this wild card picture is absolutely wide open. The D-Backs are not just in the mix for the 3rd wild card spot. They're in the mix for the 2nd wild card spot and the 1st wild card spot. All of that is on the table, given how much the Braves have struggled as of late. The Padres are playing better. The New York Mets are hanging tough in there as well. The Cardinals I remain skeptical of, but they find a way to kind of continue to hover around. And another thing here is that there's kind of a separation once you get past the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are just a half game behind the Diamondbacks. It's a big series this weekend. We'll talk about that in a second. But then you've got 3 games separating the Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds. Yeah. And the Giants and the Cubs and the Nationals, all those teams are further down. So there is this kind of separation in the standings in the NL that we didn't have a few weeks ago.
And honestly, we already saw that the Nationals have kind of made it known that they are apparently going to be sellers as far as the trade deadline goes. So
Yeah.
The farther those teams get back, the more that they have a tough decision to make here. And with not a lot of time left, the trade deadline is on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So there is not a lot of time for these teams to, make something happen. It's also not a lot of time for the Diamondbacks to have something drastically bad happen, knock on wood, wherever I need to knock. But I mean, right now, these teams are almost solidifying the fact that they're going to be where they're at when that trade deadline comes around. And, when you start dropping 5 games plus back from this pack of 6, it's going to be pretty difficult as a franchise to see, outside of circumstances, to see your team being able to make up that ground. We do also have our power rankings for this week for MLB. So let's take a look at where the top teams in baseball land. We have the Phillies in the number 1 spot. They are still there. We have the Dodgers making a huge surge back up to the number 2 spot. They're up 4 spots from last week. They were number 6. Now we have the Orioles dropping down 1 to 3rd. Yankees dropping down 1 more to 4th. Guardians dropped down to 5th, and then we have the Twins there, which have been playing some fairly good baseball, making their way up to 6th on the power rankings. Bottom half there, Brewers in 7th, Astros in 8th. The Royals making their first appearance there, especially after the Diamondbacks got a chance to see them in person. And then the Braves rounding out the top 10. Diamondbacks have to be getting close to this, Jesse, because, again, we have advertised them as basically the hottest team in baseball in the month of July. So I feel like they're right there on the bubble looking in. But, what's going on with the Royals making their way on the list after the Diamondbacks beat them 2 out of 3? What's the thought there?
Yeah, I mean, the Royals just continue to hold their own and play pretty well. I know they did lose 2 out of 3 to the D-backs, but they swept the White Sox very handily before that. And they're 9 games over 500. They have a plus 74 run differential as well. So yeah, the Royals probably deserved to be on the list last week, and we didn't have them there.
That's probably
was
more
that just
of the
his
case.
theme song?
No, I believe that was Michaela's theme song, Entering the Room.
Your music was on there.
Your music was on.
We were graced with Michaela's Spotify playlist, I think, for a couple of minutes just now. Don't worry about it, Michaela. We enjoyed it. It was great. The Atlanta Braves also, I considered moving the Braves off this list entirely because they are just struggling so much. I mean, they've lost 4 out of their last 5 games. You look at this top 10 list, it feels like almost all these teams are kind of struggling right now. Only the Dodgers, Brewers, and Royals had an above 500 record after the All-Star break, like between the All-Star break and as we're doing this right now. Those are the only 3 teams out of this top 10 that have actually won more games than they lost. We've seen the Orioles take a step back, the Yankees take a step back. The Braves, as I mentioned, the Phillies also just had a 2-4 week. So none of these teams are really playing all that well, it feels like right now. But a lot of these teams are probably going to be getting better here in the next few days with the trade deadline approaching.
Well, and the Atlanta Braves are they're a victim of obviously what's going on with their injuries, and the injuries have been the biggest problem for that team. Like, they've decimated their pitching, their positions players, like moving them off that list. It doesn't feel like a slight as much as it's like more about what the team is now versus giving them credit for what they've accomplished. They've accomplished, obviously a good record this season, but it does feel like that's dwindling for them now. And it's hard to see a path where they are still a formidable team come this push into the playoffs. And should they make the playoffs, a formidable team in the postseason. Like, it sucks for them though, because they've lost some major stars, and it does, who knows who they're going to get back before the end of the season, but they're scrambling. There's talk of them adding Eric Fetty and a few other names there, but
where would they be if like Chris Sale hadn't just decided to become the best pitcher?
No,
on the
that's
planet again?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even thinking back about that series that the Diamondbacks lost to them when they got swept early on, the Diamondbacks had a lead in every single one of those games, if I remember that correctly, and that was a situation where that was one of the more disastrous series for the Diamondbacks early on that made you start questioning how bad this season maybe was going to go for this team. But, now here we are. And of course, we talked about those wildcard standings. Diamondbacks have a good chance to make a push there. Of course, you should probably stop by America's Thirst Stop because it's another painfully hot day here in the Valley. And Circle K is America's Thirst Stop. Get yourself any size Froster, any size Polar Pop for just 79 cents right now, and get it in you. Join the Inner Circle and get stuff in you for cheaper, by the way. You can join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details, but there will be even more savings in that app. Coupons, not to mention the fact that you save 25 cents off per gallon.
What do you know about chicken tornadoes?
On your first 5 fill-ups. Oh, I love me some chicken tornadoes.
I had a couple chicken tornadoes on my way to Vegas.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Those get you right.
That's because, you know, like sometimes when you're on the road trip, it's hard to find the hot snacks, right? Something that's gonna fill you up. So Circle K, by the way, don't sleep on their Circle K branded snacks. We've tried to tell you this time and time again.
Dude, the peanut butter pretzels,
they are amazing.
They're fantastic.
And it's a gigantic bag. Like the only time I've gotten a bigger bag of peanut butter pretzels is when you go to like Costco and get like the that barrel shaped thing. But this is amazing. Stop by Circle K, fill yourself up, fill your gas up right now. Also, future's bright for this Arizona Diamondbacks team, so you should plan accordingly with a good pair of sunglasses from our friends at Shady Rays. Get ready for the season, postseason, maybe get ready for postseason with quality shades built to last. It's very hot outside. The sun is trying to kill you. You need sunglasses to protect your eyes. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company that offers a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people, and it will not cost you nearly as much as comparable sunglasses. They will cost you less for their crystal clear optics and their hundreds of styles to choose from, not to mention the fact that they have the best replacement plan in all of eyewear. If you lose or break your Shady Rays, even on day one, they will send you out a brand new pair, no questions asked. And if you do not love your shades, you can exchange them for a new pair. Sometimes we buy stuff online and it just isn't as we thought it was going to be when it arrives. So if you, for some reason, do not love your Shady Rays, you can exchange them for a different pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. No risk at all when you shop. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated, again, 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Diamondbacks have a big series with the Pittsburgh Pirates, arguably the other hottest team in the National League. They've been playing very good. They've been riding some excellent starting pitching, including the guy this year, right? Paul Skenes, mustache man, been the big story in baseball. Torrey fell in love with him during the All-Star game. Luckily, the Diamondbacks miss out on Paul Skenes. I guess I say luckily, but like, yeah, I mean, we all as baseball fans want to see the Diamondbacks and Paul Skenes face off, but we also don't really want to face him. So not a terrible outcome of missing him. But let's take a look at the Pirates at a glance here before we take. Oh wait, nope, that's fine. Let's take a look here. That's fine. These are the probable pitchers for this series. Diamondbacks haven't made anything official yet. This is just how they currently stack up. The Pirates, meanwhile, did make this official with Luis L. Ortiz with a very good ERA, 5-2 this year, 5-2 this season, 2.57 ERA, 59 strikeouts. Marco Gonzalez, another good young pitcher, 1-1 with a 2.70 ERA and 19 strikeouts. And then Mitch Keller there. Good old Mitch Keller, 10-5, 3.34 ERA, 108 strikeouts this season. And I think for the most part, we probably won't see any changes from the Diamondbacks on their end, with Gallen going in game 1, Fott in game 2, Gilbert Diaz in game 3. He might be the only question mark there, maybe, but I don't see a reason why the Diamondbacks wouldn't have him start in that game. And I don't know who, at least at this time, they would go to if they don't go with Diaz.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like maybe there's some bullpen game potential there or something, but yeah, I mean, if the D-backs were not planning on having Gilbert Diaz pitch bulk innings in the majors, then they would have sent him out after his last outing. So obviously it wasn't great, but he was very good in the 2 outings before that. I think Gilbert Diaz is staying in this rotation for the time being. This is a really big series. I mean, it's D-backs are just half a game of separation here between the D-backs and the Pirates going into this thing. The Pirates just right behind the D-backs. And the Pirates are also in an interesting position going into the trade deadline where they probably like should add to that team because it's pretty good. I mean, they don't hit much.
Really, they do not hit much.
If we look at the at a glance here for the Pirates, you'll see that they don't hit a whole lot. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've got the lovely 3.27 starting pitching ERA as a team, which ranks 3rd in all of baseball. Their bullpen, not so great, 4.26 ERA there, which is 23rd. Their team OPS, though, 669, which ranks 23rd in the game as well. There just isn't much thump in the middle of this lineup. I think Brian Reynolds has been good. We saw him at the All-Star game. O'Neal Cruz hits a baseball 127 miles an hour off the bat every once in a while, but there's still not quite as much consistency there as maybe you'd like to see. So this will be a fun series, and it's not just this one, but the D-backs are heading to Pittsburgh here in about a week to play the Pirates again. So they're going to see a whole lot of this Pirates team here over the next couple of weeks.
It's amazing how the baseball season evolves as you go through it, because there was a time where we were looking at the schedule ahead and we talked about how much the Diamondbacks were going to struggle here in this stretch against the Dodgers and the Padres and these other teams that they had lined up post All-Star break. There were still some tough opponents, but the Diamondbacks maybe had a chance here when they started playing the Pirates to maybe pick up some wins and, beat these opponents. And everything's kind of shifted since then, not to mention the fact that the Diamondbacks have now not lost a series in their last 7 series, dating back to their win over the Oakland A's. The last time they lost a series was against the Minnesota Twins. When you talk about the outside,
that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
That was like a month ago. I think it was June 25th to 27th, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, July has treated the Diamondbacks well. They are second in Major League Baseball behind the Milwaukee Brewers in outs above average themselves. They have 30 to the Pittsburgh Pirates 1 there that you see. And, of course, the big thing there with the Pirates is that their starting pitching is incredible. Third for ERA. They have the third best ERA in all of baseball. And that's, again, that's with a staff that you could, like you said, really add to here at the All-Star break. And the Pirates really could be a problem in Major League Baseball. So hopefully the Diamondbacks can take care of business here, because they do play a lot of games against them over the next stretch. Let's pull one of those Reds kind of situations where you just beat up on them a lot.
I mean, if the Pirates found their way into the playoffs and Jared Jones were to get healthy, Jared Jones is hurt right now, dealing with a lat strain, I believe. Same thing that Eduardo Rodriguez is dealing with D-backs. If Jared Jones were to come back, I mean, you're looking at a playoff series with Paul Skenes, Mitch Keller, and Jared Jones. That's low key. Like that's about as good as you'll find in all of baseball. And I know the Pirates, as we said earlier, don't hit much. But if they were to add to their offense here in the next few days, and Jared Jones were to get healthy at some point in the second half of the season, like, I don't know if you want the Pirates necessarily come playoff time.
The Pirates are just the Mariners, but yellow.
That's pretty accurate. Honestly, that's pretty accurate. I mean, I'd probably take the Mariners bullpen over the Pirates bullpen.
I'd take the Pirates ballpark over the Mariners ballpark.
That's also fair.
The Mariners ballpark is on an Indian burial ground or something.
Makes a lot of sense.
It is so cursed.
I love the Mariners
I do
ballpark,
too.
though.
It's one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah,
but you saw what Oscar said. He said that you just don't feel right in there.
Yeah.
That's why he just couldn't hit in there.
It's a tough place to hit. Yeah. It's true.
Well, he's hitting now, that's for sure. But
he is.
Well, we of course thank you guys so much for being here. We also thank Desert Financial Credit Union for always checking the numbers for us, and for more than 84 years being Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union. They are dedicated to creating exceptional experiences. I found out today that our guy Eric, his entire family has been a member of Desert Financial Credit Union for years. I have been a member. I got my first mortgage through Desert Financial. So they are it's a credit union you can trust. It's a credit union that has your best interests in mind, and you can look to them for checking and savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and so much more. Look to Desert Financial again to help you achieve your financial goals and dreams. When you open a free checking account online, you can get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. And one thing that I haven't had in way too long is the chicken tendies from Fort Peaks.
Oh, I'm so hungry right now.
I am
Derek.
starving. When we were in Chicago, there was talk of us going to this place that apparently had the best chicken tenders in the entire city. Wasn't interested because I don't care. They're not. Yeah. There's no way that they're going to rank anywhere close to the amazing food that Fort Peaks has. And that's just their food. Their beers might be even more incredible. They have a wide variety of beers to choose from, including the Bad Birdie Juicy Golden Ale that we've been hyping up so much because it is just so damn good. So make sure to check out the delicious collaboration between Four Peaks and Bad Birdie, as well as visit fourpeaks.com/locator to find all your favorite beers and events. Check out at Four Peaks Brew or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery. Must be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks, and please drink responsibly. All right. Well, we thank you guys so much for joining us here today. We will be back tomorrow with another post-game show from Chase Field against the aforementioned Pittsburgh Pirates. We will also be back here on Saturday with another post-game show. So keep it locked right here. Make sure to join us for that. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at cap_caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, the maniac behind the Mac over there is Shane Diefenbach. Well, that was a good noise.
Is that a maniac sound?
That's a maniac sound. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it Shane Dief?
Yeah.
It's just Shane Dief. So make sure to follow him there, of course. But of course, all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also follow our show at PHNX_DBacks. We thank you guys for stopping by. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon. No Diamondbacks game tonight. So enjoy yourself. Go see Deadpool and Wolverine like I'm going to go do. That's awesome tonight. But hope you guys have a wonderful evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you make trades that make sense.
We all silly like the mayor.